Hi, folks. Welcome back to Cordisco's Corner. Giuliani Trump campaign attorneys outlined multiple pathways to victory in key state vote audits. Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, and Jenna Ellis addressed the media. Boy, I'll tell you, Sidney Powell and Jenna Ellis, I watched the press conference. I believe it was on RSBN, Right Side Broadcasting Network, on YouTube. There's many other spots that have it. You should see this. All hell is going to break loose. Before we get into this, I want to say that thank you all for my new subscribers that I've received. I appreciate it. I'm a new podcast channel, so any subscriptions would be really, really appreciated. I'm never going to ask you for money. I'm just going to ask for your support. And if you could also share this video on other media sites, I would personally appreciate it, or with other people that you know on YouTube. Just copy the link to any of my videos and send it out. Also wanted to say that I'm on Twitter at Cordisco's Corner. And that's on Twitter at Cordisco's Corner. Anyway, folks, let's get to it. It's all hell's going to break loose. President Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, and Trump campaign senior advisors Jenna Ellis and Sidney Powell on Thursday described patterns of potential massive voter fraud on Election Day. I just want to say, I think Jenna Ellis is sharper than hell. Oh, man, you should have saw her. She takes no crap. Good for her. And outlined what they say are remaining multiple pathways to victory for President Trump and the legal strategies they're pursuing to get there. This isn't really about pathways to victory. This is about a free and fair election and the things that went on. The tons of irregularities. And God knows what else. And I'll tell you, if you watch the press conference, I know those attorneys work for the Trump campaign and Trump. I get it. They're going to show their side only. But I'll tell you, it's pretty compelling. And as they said, as some of the reporters were basically been called fake news the whole time because of the censorship that goes on in these media companies, they got a little belligerent. And they gave it right back to them. This is about our country. This is about a fair and free election. This is about, so this never, ever, ever, never happens to another presidential candidate again. I don't care what side of the alley's on, R or D, I don't care. This is wrong. And as they were saying, this is only the presentation. And they're doing that as you would present it in your opening case to the judge and jury. It's not all the evidence, just a small piece of it. It's just a outline of how they plan to proceed. And they have to do that because the media won't cover it otherwise. Free and fair election. That's all they want. Giuliani, a former New York City mayor, spent the bulk of his speaking time during the press conference discussing specific evidence of voter fraud the campaign has collected in the 16 days since the election, which includes hundreds of signed affidavits from individuals alleging criminal election activity took place in major cities like Detroit and Philadelphia. He also says, I watched the press conference, I think they call them emergency ballots. That's what we call them here in upstate New York when I used to work at election inspector desk years ago. I'm a former city councilman here in upstate New York in Binghamton, a former Democrat, now Republican, for those of you who don't know or heard any of my videos. And it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I think he mentioned, I believe it was Philadelphia, that there were 17,000 emergency ballots. Now, 15,000 of those, according to Mayor Giuliani, were people that walked in to vote. They looked up their names, and they said, oh, sorry, you already voted absentee. And they said, no, I didn't. And they said, oh, yes, you did. And they said, oh, no, I didn't. I would know. And so they gave them emergency ballots so they wouldn't be disenfranchised. And now the 17,000 he was referring to, approximately 15,000 of those were that situation. Somebody's voting for all these people, according to Rudy Giuliani. And I've been an election inspector. When somebody demands an emergency ballot, even if they're not registered, you have to give them one. And you figure it out later. But the problem was, as he showed, what happens when these mail-in ballots come in from who knows where. They're taken out of the envelope. There's an envelope inside with the person's vote inside that. They chucked the outside envelope. Now the paper trail is gone. You take the ballot from inside the envelope that was inside the main envelope, and you run it through the system, and that's your ballot, whoever you circle, whoever you voted for. Problem is, though, recounts don't matter because of the fact that if that ballot was illegally brought in, there's no paper trail, there's no envelope, you don't know who it belongs to because you have to keep their identity secret because it's a secret vote. And therein lies the problem with all the mail-in ballots that came in. And he explains how many of the poll watchers were pushed away, literally. A couple were assaulted, he claims. And I watched some of the videos where they're 20, 30 feet away. He even makes a little joke from a My Cousin Vinny movie, which was pretty funny. Anyway, let's get on with this. Julia called what the campaign attorneys find a pattern that repeats itself in multiple states. They're much better at explaining what happened than I. Please watch the press conference. It's got to be on multiple channels on YouTube, I have no doubt. A voter fraud the campaign has collected in the 16 days since the election, which includes hundreds of signed affidavits from individuals alleging criminal election activity took place in major cities like Detroit and Philadelphia. We did go over that. Giuliani called what the pattern attorneys are finding a campaign attorneys are finding a pattern that repeats itself multiple times, especially focused on big cities. And that, as you would imagine, are controlled by Democrats. That's all true. He said that Philadelphia and Detroit have lengthy histories of cheating during elections, saying that Philadelphia in particular has cheated in every election that has been held in the last 60 years. I'm saying that's alleged, so they don't take my video down. I'm sure there's probably some stories out there you can find. You could say a similar thing about Detroit, he continued. Giuliani, who has been leading the campaign's legal efforts and strategies in most states, then described the type of voter fraud he believes took place across swing state Pennsylvania. He declared that according to evidence accrued by the team of senior attorneys, 682,700 ballots cast in the state were not inspected, which renders them ballots that were null and void. In other words, when they were taken out of the envelope, there wasn't a Republican and a Democrat sitting there to watch over each other to make sure everything is legit. And those ones that didn't have that, either the poll watchers were pushed away, the inspectors were pushed away, makes those ballots null and void. And it's unfortunate those people are going to be disenfranchised. I happen to agree if that's the case. Biden's lead in Pennsylvania is only about 140,000 votes, which the Trump campaign believes is a number gained by illegally counting ballots they described. This is all alleged now. So, YouTube, don't take my video down. At one point, Giuliani demonstrated to the crowd how to use a mail-in ballot and why, without a Republican and Democrat inspector president to watch the unsealing of the envelope. Fraud could easily transpire. That's true. It's just too many openings for bad things to happen. That was the problem. And here's the other thing. Once the ballot gets in the system, doing recounts is pointless because they're going to recount the same ballot whether it was legal or not. Many of the affidavits and voter discrepancy patterns described by Giuliani have been covered as developing stories by Just the News, including cases in Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. What a shocker. All the swing states that Trump needed to keep the presidency and what Biden needed to win the Electoral College. Giuliani described similar types of potential election tampering taking place in the less obvious states of New Mexico and Virginia. Giuliani called the efforts of those seeking to overrun the U.S. presidential election via a large-scale voter fraud operation clearly illegal, clearly voter fraud, easily provable, hundreds of witnesses, maybe thousands. Now, this is all alleged now. But they seemed, they were pretty convinced. They're making a compelling case just in their opening statement. He also attacked the mainstream media for covering inaccurately the quality of evidence collected by the Trump legal team. When discussing the hundreds of affidavits his team has collected, he said to reporters, "You should have had the time and energy to read these things." He further chastised the media, saying that witnesses that have given the Trump legal team sworn affidavits do not wish to have their names made public because of dangers to themselves, their families, and their livelihoods they believe they would face. And that's true, because two election people in Wayne County, which is Detroit, the two Republicans originally would not certify the results from Detroit. The two Democrats did. They received all kinds of pressure. Their families were threatened. Their kids were mentioned by name. It was horrible. So they said, okay, I'll certify it. The two Republicans, I'll certify it if you do an audit. And they agreed on an audit. And then they turned around and said, oh, sorry, we're not doing the audit now. So now they've recanted and says we're withdrawing our approval. So all hell's breaking loose. That comes about because of the hysterical way in which you have covered Donald Trump for the last 4 years. That's fair. It is a hysterical way. You can hate the guy's guts, but you know what? They had a story yesterday. I forgot where it was that somebody brought out. I think it was Tim Pool. That when Ivanka Trump was a teenager, she farted and blamed it on somebody else. I believe it was the Daily News. Seriously? Really? In a moment that could potentially undermine the campaign's strategy pertaining to a number of lawsuits that have been filed around the country, Giuliani said there were plenty of judges who would rule against their arguments and issue ridiculously irrational opinions to side with Democrat politicians with whom their political alliance stances align. He repeatedly referred to the Democrat voter fraud machine, saying their attempt to reverse the result of this election were good. I don't know that they were that good because they made significant mistakes like all crooks do when we caught them. This is all alleged now by Giuliani. Defense attorney Sidney Powell, who is also representing former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn in this ongoing legal battle, also spoke during the conference about the voting machines used to tally ballots during the election, which she claimed were being tampered with by communist forces outside the United States. Specifically, she said that powers affiliated with George Soros in Cuba, Venezuela, and likely China had programmed some ballot counting machines to skew outcomes in favor of Biden and against Trump. Of the legal challenge ahead, she said, we will not be intimidated inside the millions of Americans who cast ballots for the president. American patriots are fed up with the corruption from the local level to its highest level of government, she said. We're going to reclaim the United States for the people who voted for freedom. Now, I want to say to all you people out there that are lukewarm or even hate Trump's guts, Americans don't like cheaters. We're going to see what happens. And this should be reported as it goes along by all mainstream media. You say alleged, you say alleged, you say alleged. They had no problem with a fake Russian collusion blasting it all over the place, but they're having a problem with this. So they seem like very, very sharp people. Extremely sharp. Yes, they do work for the Trump campaign, so their view is going to be skewed. But I got to tell you, one of the attorneys here, Jenna Ellis, whoa, boy, I loved her. You know, I'll tell you, I'm sure she has a boyfriend or is married, but I'd marry her in a second. Boy, what spirit she's got, and she's incredibly intelligent as well. So we're going to see what's going to happen. All hell is breaking loose. But I want to say, folks, let the thing play out. Let them show the evidence, and I hope they get a fair shake. If it turns out it's not what it is, then it's not what it is. But if it's even half true, our election at the national level has been severely compromised. It's going to take a lot of doing. We have 2 years. We have the midterms coming. And people see that their vote doesn't matter. They're going to cheat, and they're going to put in who they want, no matter what party it is. Makes voter turnout lower and lower and lower. I know. I ran in 5 local elections here in upstate New York. Getting people to vote as it is harder than hell. But anyway, folks, watch the Tyra press conference. I'll try to leave the link in the description below. And you can see for yourself. And you can see some of the questions that were asked and some of the answers. And I do have to say, though, they got snarky with the reporters. But, you know, after all this time and all this false information and fake news, yeah, you can get a little snarky. I would, too. Well, folks, that's it for now. And until next time, goodbye and good luck.